Smite her from her database and burn the body. Keep this contained, or you will join her in the furnace.
How'd you even get these numbers?
It's a state secret.
I'll be charged with espionage.
Then you better consider a way not to get caught. We lose everything of value here in China.
They both exhibit high temperatures, severe headaches, and I'm the most concerned that it might be quite contagious.
Why waste a good pandemic, right, Jen?
You have a serious viral outbreak that can threaten the whole world.
You mean fake news?
I'll never be able to come back to China.
Right now, our sex is what matters most and nothing else.
You saw the chaos in the hospital, right? If the party has a plan, it needs to be better.
You think you know better than the party leaders? I need to be with my family.
They will remain there to complete your mission.
I will not commit a crime against humanity.
The war never ended for us. So to double-cross me, Dr. Conrad, is something I cannot allow.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's special event. This event is brought to you together by NTD News and Ganjin World. And this is a very special event. And you probably feel excited. You just watched the trailer for this movie, The Unrestricted Warfare. And this event is very timely for such an important topic. It's one of the most defining threat that the world facing right now, the unrestricted warfare from the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. And today, we bring this together, so many experts in this field, and also the courageous crew who make this film possible, who bring this story to the screen. And we have many honored guests in the audience as well. So let me mention a few. And so we have the director, Ma Yan. We have the writer, Bob King. And then we have Jan Jekielek, the host of American Thought Leader. We have Frank Gaffney, the executive chairman for the Committee of Present Danger China. And we have Casey Fleming, who is the executive director for BlackOps Partners. And we also have Mr. Joe Wang, who's the executive producer for this film. We also have Sophia, also is the producer for this film. And we also have Sherry Ng, Dr. Sherry Ng, who's the CEO of the Ganjin World. And so we also have our moderator, Steve Lance, the host for Capital Report for NTD News. So in the audience, we also have Mr. Piero Tosi, the staff director for Congressional Executive Commission on China. And we also have Mr. Sakan Tas, and also Eileen Ling from the Victim of Communist Memorial Foundation joining us. And so we're glad we host this event in the US Capitol because we feel that the message from this movie as well from today's panel need to be heard by the United States Congress. And so first, we would like to invite our honored guest to make some opening remarks. First will be Dr. Sherry Ng. So she actually relocated from Silicon Valley to Hudson Valley, New York. And she's the executive director for Ganjin World, which is the fastest growing video sharing platform as well as streaming platform. Let's welcome Dr. Sherry Ng.
Thank you, Sean. So Distinguished guests and dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the special premiere of the Unrestricted War. I'm honored to host you today to represent the Ganjin World, a content sharing and a video streaming platform with a mission of putting humanity above technology. So Ganjin World was established in 2022 in Middletown, New York, with by Silicon Valley tech veterans and business innovators. Many of our staff have experienced or witnessed CCP's persecution on its own citizens. They came to the United States to study, work, and live here. Having experienced both systems, so we were alarmed to see the CCP's propaganda, censorship, surveillance, often through the tech sector, seeping into the United States little by little, year after year. So the Unrestricted War is a powerful story of courage and truth, produced by NTD Canada and will stream on Ganjin World Plus, our streaming platform on ganjinworld.com on August 8th. This film confronts a global pandemic cover-up by the Chinese Communist Party. And in real life, the cover-up of the COVID-19 has brought great threat to the humanity. The threat is real. Just this month, Ganjin World experienced a CCP's coordinated online attack with flooded fake hate comments by fake accounts targeting programs that exposed the persecution of Falun Gong. On the July 20, the Falun Gong anti-persecution commemorating events. We see the Chinese regime extending its transnational repression to the United States, especially targeting peaceful Falun Gong practitioners and Shenyun artists who have produced the #1 show about traditional Chinese culture. This is why Ganjin World was created. We develop technology for the sake of humanity, not controlling people. We stand firmly for free speech without political censorship. We protect user privacy with our private data center, which we built from scratch 3 years ago. We provide wholesome content for families without harmful influences or collecting, user data from American people. In just 3 years, Ganjin World has launched the Ganjin Cloud without CCP infiltration, the privacy-first Ganjin browser, and the Ganjin Campus for a safe and positive digital environment for children. There are many more exciting products to come for Ganjin World. Today, with the special premiere of the Unrestricted War, we want to invite all people to watch the film. This is not just a fiction. It is happening in real life. Only by understanding the severity of this attack on humanity, the American way of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness can be protected. So thank you all for coming and enjoy.
Thank you, Sherry. Next speaker will be Dr. Joe Wang. Dr. Joe Wang got his PhD from Cornell University. He's actually a molecular biologist. And he's a longtime friend of mine. And we remember, in year 2020, we were discussing about CCP covering, regarding about COVID outbreak, right, at the end of 2019. Time passed so fast, 5 years already. And let's welcome Dr. Joe Wang. He's the president of NTD Canada.
Thank you, Sean. Well, President Trump was not kidding. The U.S. is the hottest country by temperature. I come from Canada, so I thought Toronto was hot, but DC is hotter. Welcome everybody to this special session, and I'm honored that NTD can work with Ganjin World to premiere this important film. And as one of the executive producers of the film, my primary job is to get money for Jan and the team. I hope that the team actually agrees that apart from the money, I contributed something meaningful to the film as well in terms of content. I grew up in communist China and went to Fudan University in Shanghai. Next door is the PLA, the People Liberation Army's second military medical school. My high school buddy went to that school, and I can tell you that the PLA's bioweapon program is real. So this is the first point I want to get across today. And after Fudan, it was the Tiananmen Square massacre. So I was lucky. I escaped China in 1990 and come to Canada for my PhD and Cornell for my postdoc. So after that, I spent 10 years doing vaccine research at one of the largest vaccine companies in the world. And I was mentioning that in 2003, I spearheaded the vaccine development against SARS-CoV-1. So if people still remember that, actually Toronto lost 41 lives of SARS-CoV-1. But the disease went away. But so when the SARS-CoV-2 come around, I know what's happening. And so when it comes to COVID and vaccines, I do know a thing or two about it. And hopefully that shows in the movie. So my second point to make is that there is no such thing of non-military medical research in communist China. So every discovery, every advancement can be repurposed to serve the goals of the PLA. A former colleague of mine, Dr. Xuefeng Yu, he learned it the hard way. When I quit my vaccine job to do NTD full-time, he left the company as well, and he went to China to establish a Canada-China joint venture on vaccine development and production. It's like Jim in the film, you'll find out. When COVID-19 started, Dr. Yu made a deal with the Trudeau government to provide both countries a COVID vaccine. In October 2020, when he tried to ship the vaccine from China to Canada, according to the agreement that he actually had with the Trudeau government, the PLA stopped the shipment at the airport, claiming that the vaccine was a PLA property. So the deal that he signed with Justin Trudeau was just turned into a historical document with no practical significance. So my American friends, I hope President Trump is listening. The Chinese people are honest, hardworking people. The CCP is everything but. So you can never trust the CCP. They can sign whatever deals in front of them, but they can turn into very quickly as historical document with no significant practical use. So, although the film, as Dr. Yin said, the film is fiction, but I can tell you that every element in the story could be real. Again, my 2 points to take away. Number one, the PLA's bioweapon program is real. Number two, there's no such thing of non-military medical research in communist China. So never trust the CCP. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Our next speaker will be, right here, Miss Unique Park. So Miss Unique Park was born in Seoul, and Seoul, South Korea, before her immigration to Toronto, Canada. And she also studied at the prestigious American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City. And she has multiple talents, and she has credits in multitude of projects, including American Gods, Orphan Black, Private Eyes, and a recurring role in the CBC hit comedy Kim Convenience. And she also recently portrayed Melanie Davis in the latest season of CBC's Corona, and also Natalia Yu in Murdoch Mysterious. And in this film, she had a commanding performance as General Chen, one of the film's most unforgettable character. If you remember, there's a Major General Chen Wei in China. She quickly took over the control of Wuhan Institute of Virology when WIV became a focus for potential lab leak. So this is a very important role in the film. Welcome, Ms. Park.
I really loved portraying General Chan. Anyway, first, I am very proud to be here, and I'm very, very proud to be part of the Unrestricted War. It was more than just another role for me. It was a very rare opportunity to contribute to a story. Not only, it's a story that is not only timely, but necessary. When I first read the script, I was drawn to it by its emotional depth and complex storyline. The Unrestricted War doesn't just give away simple answers. On the surface, it's a political thriller, but underneath, it's about the quiet struggles many of us face today. And, you know, we have to choose always between truthful survival, duty, and conscience, and power and loyalty. This film doesn't rely just on entertainment. It relies on truth. The truth is that people in oppressive regimes are often used by those in power for their own goals. And that truth is what makes this film powerful, important, and deeply human. Playing the role of General Chen was an emotional and challenging experience. What intrigued me the most about playing her character were the inner struggles she carries. The contradictions, the secrets, the pain that never had the space to surface. She's not just a typical antagonist. She is an example of what happens when one's innocence, loyalty, and love have been stolen. She has become a weapon shaped by a regime that understands how to exploit grief, fear, and loyalty for her country. Her true identity was stolen, like many others. And that brings me to the heart of why this story matters. I feel deep sympathy for those living under systems that take away their freedom to speak and right to be heard. Just like everyone, most Chinese people want dignity, choice, and a chance to live without a fear. The Unrestricted War shows that it's not the people who are dangerous. It's the regime that fears their freedom. Her generation now holds power in China. Despite everything, they still cling to a distorted idealization of communist ideology. Even today, they maintain a Cold War mindset, and the unrestricted warfare is a direct extension of that way of thinking. The Unrestricted War is ultimately a film about awakening. It's about the cost of silence and the power of truth. And I hope that by sharing this film, we can begin to build more compassion, courage, and empathy for those who cannot yet speak for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Park. So now we will have a panel discussion on this important topic, the unrestricted war. And I will let our moderator, Steve Lance, to host this panel discussion. Steve Lance is the Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief for NTD News, and he's the host for Capitol Report. Steve?
First, just want to thank everybody for joining us for this very important topic. Before we do start our panel, I have some brief remarks. Want to thank everybody for coming here in person and for joining us online. Today's panel is inspired and focused on the new film, The Unrestricted War, a title that captures not just a strategy, but also a worldview. The concept of unrestricted warfare comes from a 1999 playbook written by two Chinese military colonels. In it, they argued that war is no longer limited to the battlefield. Instead, every domain it includes economy, media, law, technology, and even public health. It can all become a battlefield. The weapons, what are they? They can range from lawfare, capital flows, propaganda, disinformation, or even, what we'll see in this film, a virus. This doctrine isn't theoretical. In recent years, we've seen the CCP blur the line between war and peace. We've also seen how the CCP can attack and blur the line between the state and civilian, domestic and foreign. From cyber attacks and legal manipulation to economic coercion and even transnational repression, particularly right here in the US. The CCP has embraced a form of conflict designed to fly under the radar, slow, silent, and often deniable. But today, we focus on a very chilling front, biological warfare. COVID-19 shattered lives, economies, and trust. While the full origin of COVID is still clouded, what's clear is the CCP's pattern of deception, suppression of whistleblowers, and control of global institutions. Was it a leak? Was it worse? Regardless, the regime's behavior during the pandemic fits squarely within the playbook of unrestricted war. We're not here to speculate. We're here to investigate, expose, discuss, and ask the hard questions that mainstream institutions often ignore or neglect. Because if warfare is no longer declared, then defending our society requires waking up to the war we don't even realize that we're in. So with that said, I'd like to have our panelists take their seats, and I will give them a brief introduction. So I will go from my right. Joining us right here is Sean Lin. He's the executive director of the Consilium Institute, U.S. Army veteran, microbiologist, Tiananmen Square survivor, and co-founder of the CCP Biothreats Initiative. He's also co-author of China's International Military Civilian Virology Fusion. Next to Sean, we have Mr. Casey Fleming, CEO of BlackOps Partners, where he advises Fortune 500 firms, U.S. government agencies, and allied governments on strategic risk, national security, and counterintelligence. Next to Casey, we have Jan Jekielek. He is a senior editor at the Epoch Times, award-winning journalist, host of American Thought Leaders, as well as Cash's Corner, and producer of documentaries, including The Unseen Crisis and Finding Manny. Next to Jan, we have Mr. Frank Gaffney, founder of the Center for Security Policy. He acted as President Reagan's Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Policy and served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear Forces and Arms Control Policy, top national security strategist and leading voice on CCP subversion threats. He is currently the president of the Institute for the American Future. And lastly, we have the director of this fantastic film that we're here to watch today, Mr. Yan Ma. He is the director of the Unrestricted War, acclaimed filmmaker known for multiple films focused on confronting censorship and authoritarian influence. His work has been featured in top international film festivals around the world. Let's give a great round of applause for our distinguished panelists. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. There's a lot of brain power here. I hope we can get to expound some of this. Jan, I would like to obviously start with you. We're here for your film today. If you could, talk to us about some of the challenges that you faced as you directed this and made the film, and why it was so important to tell this particular story.
Well, making this film has been a indeed very challenging journey for us, because as a Chinese-Canadian filmmaker, we kind of knew this from the very beginning of the project. Like, we will face many challenges and even real risks for making a film like this. Me and my producer, Sophia and Joe, we were talking about this a few times during the production, because many of our team members, including myself, we still have family members in China, and they've been facing a huge amount of pressure for what we're doing here. So just my family, for example, we received harassment warnings from the local government officials and threats from the National Security Office, and some of my family members' income got cut off right after I started the film. So it's almost like, it's been almost 2 years. So it's been very, very difficult situation for us. And we were, during the production, and of course, like, we can enter the country, but this story, it happened in China. So we have to figure out a way to make it look real, and so that's why we carefully design every shot to make sure the everything look legit on the camera. Yeah, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult, and yeah, every time in the scene, if you pull the camera like 1 feet away, you will see like everything's fake. So yeah, it's a very challenging production for sure. So to make this film, like, I just feel it's very important for us to, like, after 4 or 5 years, to reflect on what happened, especially in the beginning of this pandemic. So in the story, our antagonist, we showed the antagonists use their power to censor information and manipulate people, basically weaponize the whole crisis for their political purpose. So, and all that actually perfectly align with the concepts of the unrestricted warfare. So yeah, so I feel like we need to make a film to shine a light on this issue. So all the experts in the room can figure out how to stop it.
To that point, Frank, the CCP's doctrine of unrestricted warfare, it really calls for dismantling societies through influence, subversion, deception. Are we already there right now?
about that? Is that better? A general point. This is an absolutely stunning film. Stunning both because of the technical quality of it, the performances, and the story. It is hard to overstate the importance of it at this moment because, to your question, Steve, we are in an unrestricted war with the Chinese Communist Party. Indeed, we've been in it, I would argue, since the early 1990s. They finally sort of told us about it in 1999. And you touched on it, but I just want to impress upon this audience that they listed, I think, something like 20 different lines of attack that would be used to destroy the United States of America before China had the military power to do it the old-fashioned way. And actually, in keeping with Sun Tzu's, teachings, it's better to win without fighting. So if you can do all of this through various other means, great. But one of the items listed in that, agenda was biological warfare. They came right out and said it. It's fair game. And I wanted just to make the point, I think it was Joe who talked about this, but it's directly relevant today to the circumstance in which we find ourselves. The Chinese Communist Party is a signatory to the Biological Warfare Treaty, which prohibits any of the member states from having an offensive biological program. And yes, that is what they have. And yes, it is emblematic of what they do in every possible domain. And I mention that with particular emphasis because we are in the process, as we speak, ladies and gentlemen, of trying to have a new deal with the Chinese Communist Party, a new deal on tariffs at the moment. And who knows what all else. They will not honor that deal any more than they have honored the Biological Warfare Convention or any of the other myriad treaties, agreements, trade deals that they have entered into with us and others heretofore. It is impossible. So I just want to say again, for shining the light on the character, not of the Chinese people, but of this party that has misruled them and brutalized them and murdered them in unimaginable numbers. I've heard them bruited as 100 million Chinese having been killed by the Chinese Communist Party. And that does not include the 400 million they boast of having murdered in utero, in the womb. And some say it may be another 100 million since they admitted to that. I just wanted to say, I pray, I know it is their purpose, and you didn't speak to the distribution challenges you have, and I hope we'll talk about that. Because the courage that this took to make the film and to star in it, and then to try to get it into theaters in Canada. And then, as I understand, didn't even bother trying to do it here because the theaters are owned by the Chinese Communist Party in large measure in our country. Part of the unrestricted warfare. Very literally. Anyway, just to conclude, I thank you for making this film, for doing it so beautifully, and for doing it at this moment when, I was going to say, for God's sake, but for our sake, we must awaken to the reality that these people are intent on our destruction. Again, the Chinese Communist Party. And they are well advanced in accomplishing it through unrestricted warfare. And preparing, by the way, now, with our help, and just last thought, Jan and I have talked about endlessly, with our money, thanks to Wall Street funneling it to the Chinese Communist Party, even its People's Liberation Army companies, they are now in a position to do it the old-fashioned way if they choose to. a shooting war, ladies and gentlemen. And the vast majority of us have no clue there's even a problem, let alone as great a one as there is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. Sure. Jan, as a senior editor at the Epoch Times, a premier publication that's been at the tip of the spear, really exposing the Chinese Communist Party's various campaigns, information, disinformation is a critical part of this unrestricted war. If you could, talk to us about how they have leveraged information, not just with COVID, but beyond.
Absolutely. If I may just mention, Joe Wong, he disappeared from here moments ago. Oh, he's back there. Joe, about 8 years ago, took a chance on a film which was proposed. It was a quote-unquote optimistic Holocaust documentary about my father-in-law. And he made it happen. He helped this award-winning film happen, which was kind of a labor of love. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for making, basically helping make this film happen. This is just kind of unbelievable. When it comes to information, I'll just mention one thing as we start. During the whole, let's call it COVID crisis, okay? We were actually getting a lot of insider information from inside Communist China, from people who were, we have a kind of deep underground network of sources in Communist China. And a number of those people, we very early on realized that this pandemic was happening, that there was a significant death toll within China, and a number of people who shared this information, right, also about the draconian zero COVID policies, welding people into their homes and all this. A number of those people that were sharing information are now in prison in Communist China, because they risked everything. So this getting out of information, you saw, this is obviously a very important part of this film, that theme, right, is so critical, right? Breaking through this, what they call the Great Firewall of China, using whatever means possible is so critical. So it's my hat tip to the people that are in China that are actually trying to get information out, and the people outside of China who risk, a lot in order to do that. And as we can see, Jan's family has been basically reprised against already, and God knows what else will happen. But the point is, the message is so critical. Okay, in terms of the other methods of information warfare that the CCP has been applying, I mean, gosh, I don't even know where to start. I mean, one example I could just give off the top of my head, a lot of people don't know this, but among US cable systems, okay, in US cable systems, basically there's Chinese Communist Party channels. It thoroughly penetrate the entire US cable system, and they also have American companies basically serving to distribute those channels and make sure that they're maintained. So it's not like a ton of people are watching CGTN, right? English CCTV propaganda, Chinese propaganda television, but they absolutely have. It's available on every single television in America that has cable. That's just one piece. We could go into this greatly, but you can imagine the information they share. Another piece, they were until not too long ago, they were basically putting in supplements into the top newspapers in America, right? New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. So basically Chinese communist propaganda that had a little note that said this is actually, a paid insert. But how many people knew that? Like the ability to influence, right, the elites of America with their message for, and they didn't even spend more than a few $1 million on that, right? Like we were bought off cheap, from what I can tell. That's another, just kind of off the. Never mind, some of the recent stuff that's been happening. But I just want to give you a picture of how deeply these information operations function here in America.
I believe you actually interviewed a member of Congress that introduced legislation to remove China Daily that's being widely distributed in Washington on Capitol Hill.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Actually, a freshman congressman, Aim Habane, the first thing he did is a really, really interesting guy because he's of Druze ancestry, very relevant. Many people had never heard of Druze until recent activity in Syria and Israel and so forth. But, you know, deep, incredibly patriotic American. And he just happened to notice, right, that China Daily is, you know, appears in every single office, right? And he wanted, you know, it's not that in congressional offices, exactly. So you know, the point wasn't that if you really want China Daily, you can order it, but it shouldn't just be distributed, you know, by congressional aides across Congress. That's insane, right? So, about TikTok? Okay, so getting up a little bit up to the present, how many of you have heard about the TikTok controversy, right? Is it, I mean, I hope most people have. Basically, you know, we've learned over the however many last few years that these apps, platform apps, right? For example, Facebook, Instagram, they both collect unbelievable amounts of data about us, right? And then they push back incredible amounts of specific information that is catered to our based on that information that was gathered to our particular likes and so forth, to the point where, you know, there's, you know, a serious mental health crisis, for example, among young girls because of, you know, activity on Instagram and so forth. My point is these are unbelievably powerful technologies, okay? So what the CCP did is they bought an app and then they supercharged it in the most addictive possible way and essentially have, I don't know, is it 100 million American, that's just American users, basically, you know, on an app which has the same unbelievably powerful capability as, say, Facebook or Instagram or these others, except controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, which is waging, as our mutual friend Gordon Chang likes to say, overtly a people's war against America. And yeah, and, you know, and of course it declared, and we, of course, and some of you may know or may not know that, you know, a law has actually been passed for that, for either, you know, full divestment of the CCP or, you know, basically shutting it down in America, and that hasn't happened yet. And hopefully we'll find a solution to that quick. But the point is, at the moment, and there's multiple examples of how this has actually already been affected, the CCP has an unbelievable ability. Right? Imagine, right, everything that ever comes into the field of view of your camera is collected and sent back to Communist China and analyzed to understand exactly the subtle nuances of your particular psychology and then how that can be influenced, right? And then used, you know, en masse to feed the AIs of that Communist China is growing. And then, you know, of course, that ability can then be used to feed certain things, like basically during some of the riots in 2020 and so forth, you know, basically feed to people, you know, how to basically cause social chaos, which is actually something that actively happened at that time. And there's many examples. But the point is, we know bad intent, right? I think this film, this is one of the things this film really, I'm sorry, I'm kind of monopolizing here, but this film, you got me going, Steve.
We'll blame Frank.
This film, you know, shows us, this is what is incredibly powerful about this film. It shows us, you know, I think the nature of this power structure, the Chinese Communist Party, that it doesn't have good faith. It functions to control people, even, you know, even in conflicted ways, like the general herself, you know, the coldest, most chilling character, which in the film herself is kind of held captive in a way by this ideology, by this regime. So, and we've given it the most powerful tool. We allow it to have the most powerful tool of influence to ever exist in the history of the world. That's a problem.
Yeah, TikTok is a major weapon in the unrestricted war that the Chinese Communist Party is waging. And I think it's worth noting, you know, an anecdote to that. Perhaps we'll see the CEO of Ganjing World, Sherry Yin, mentioned there's more to come. Ganjing World, a big partner here with Unrestricted War, about to launch on August 8th on that platform, is the promise to not use your data and content for nefarious means. And so, yeah, stay tuned for more from Ganjing. With that said, Casey, I want to get to you. How does the Chinese Communist Party's unrestricted warfare manifest beyond, we just talked about information, media, when they really try to use, say, business, technology, and policy even right here in the United States?
Well, it's important to first understand what unrestricted war really means. What does it mean? Okay, it means weakening the enemy by all means necessary, everything short of conventional war. What that means, so conventional war means our military, our government. So if they're weakening all sectors of society and weakening a people and a country by all means necessary, that means that the American people, man, woman, child, Canadian people, Australian, UK, keep going, they are on the front lines of this war, okay? And so this war must be understood that the normal people are on their front lines. The FBI director for the past 6 or 7 years, Christopher Wray, would come out and say that China is the most significant threat to the future of the United States. The current FBI director said the same thing. The DNI, Director of National Intelligence, said the same thing. MI5, but they don't give any detail. They say they're in our critical infrastructure, but they don't give any detail, okay? But you, American people, are on the front lines. So what do you need? You need intelligence. You need information to understand who's coming after you, how are they doing it, and how do you protect yourself, okay? So unrestricted war means taking down your enemy from within by all means necessary, short of conventional warfare, under, this is key, no rules. So when you hear a biological warfare, and we're going to sign biological agreements to play nice and nuclear agreements to play nice, they have no intention of playing nice. Everything the Chinese Communist Party has ever signed with us, they have never honored. And the worst thing that we could have done as a country is to bring them into the World Trade Organization back in the day. So now we are funding this communist regime. So what is a communist regime? A communist regime cannot exist along with freedom and a free society. So Xi Jinping and the CCP have come out relentlessly and said that we are their enemy. And the American people, we have to understand that this fight is not with the U.S. government. This fight is not with our military. And the problem with the way that we've been raised as Americans and Brits and Canadians, Canucks and Aussies, is to think that if we are in trouble, our military is going to take care of us. That has not been the case. This is a quote. The world will be won or lost in the next 10 years. That's how serious this is. My team and I have been working this for 15 years. It's true. The movie is 100% accurate. It's real. And it shows how it can be weaponized against the people. Notice there aren't really governments. We're talking about people here. Yes, there's a CCP. That's not a government. That's a maniacal, dark mafia regime. And communism cannot exist with freedom. Otherwise, freedom shows that communism is an invalid ideology if the two of them are allowed to exist. So you are in the fight of your lives right now, but you have no information. You are in the middle of this thing, but you have no information. I will give you a little spoiler. I got frustrated about a year ago. I was always hoping that someone would write a book to wake up the American people. They are in a fight that they don't know they're in. They know it now. COVID threw down what could never happen. And then you saw things happen over the next 6 months. Crazy stuff happen over the next 6 months. And you know something is wrong. You cannot put your finger on it. No one has connected the dots. The last thing I wanted to do is write a book. There'll be a book coming out in about November timeframe. It's called the Red Tsunami and the Silent Storm Killing Your Freedom. And it's not for me, and I still don't want to write a book, but I'm doing the book for the free people of the world, not focused on the American people, but also translated to all the other free people in the world, including the Chinese people that want to be free under this terroristic and totalitarian regime.
Casey, just a quick follow-up. For those of us that have been watching China closely for the past few decades, there seems to have been a gradual awakening or enlightenment. The term CCP, or Chinese Communist Party, didn't exist really 15 years ago. People would refer to them as the Chinese government or President Xi, legitimizing the CCP in a certain sense. When it comes to recognizing the Chinese Communist Party as a competitor versus an adversary, do you think there's any importance in that distinction?
There's tremendous importance, and that's a blindness that our government has and our military has. They say, our military says, and I've been challenged with this by military folks, you can't be in a war unless Congress says you're in a war. And I was challenged with that and many times. And I love it when I get that question. And I said, well, Casey, what's your lexicon? How do you define war? And I'm like, so I wait for a pregnant pause, maybe 2 pregnant pauses. And I said, I don't define it. I said, if our enemy defines it as war, then by God, it's war. And that blows their mind because only Congress can declare war if you're a U.S. military general officer. And that's the issue. And then we even have a U.S.-China commission, a U.S. Bipartisan select committee on competition between the United States and the CCP because we're so scared of the word war. The other thing is war, if you look at peace and war as 2 circles, okay? So to the American people and to the free people of the world, you're either in war or you're not. But in the middle, the CCP has expanded the middle piece, which is unrestricted war, which means your schools, your families, your doctors, your media, your next door neighbor have been infiltrated and subverted against you and your freedom for the ultimate takeover of communism. And this is the discussion that needs to be at the dinner table. This is the discussion that needs to happen at Thanksgiving and Christmas and to your neighbors over that cold light beer. Because your government is not going to help you. Your government's not going to fix you. Your military is still learning what the heck unrestricted war is. They're still trying to get their arms around, well, is it asymmetric warfare, hybrid warfare? Is it, I've heard this, irregular warfare, because they're still trying to get their minds around it. Here's the point. If you're in a war, you have to become intimate with your enemy. You need to understand their strategy. So where it is today, we have the most formidable enemy the world has ever seen. They're diabolical. And we feed them, and we fund them. And we're making them so powerful to kill our own children. That is what's going on, a 15 years worth of counterintelligence, and somebody who can talk about it, because I don't work for the government. And I can tell you as an American and as someone who is a warrior for the free world, after 15 years of working this is what's at stake. I'll say it again. The world will be won or lost in the next 10 years. And that's why this movie is a great way to open people's minds and say, could this happen? No, it couldn't happen. It is happening. And Frank, you mentioned this book in 1999. The year is 1986. CCP Nation State Program 863. Year 1986, month number 3. That's when they came out with that program or Project 863. Basically says we're going to lie, cheat, and steal to take over the world. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. We're running out of time for the panel in terms of Q&A. We want to open it up to the audience, but Sean, I do want to get to you quickly if we could. You're an Army veteran. Yeah. You're also a biologist. So this film probably hits particularly close to home for you. Talk to us about what the West might still misunderstand about the CCP's biosecurity ambitions.
Very important question, and actually, I think we fall way behind the reality here. And we talk about CCP's bioweapon program. To most of the national security experts in the United States, your mindset is still the traditional biological weapons. You think about anthrax, right? You think about the traditional neurotoxin. But it has already evolved. And in 2016, Xi Jinping established the Joint Commission for Military-Civil Fusion. So that definitely significantly boosts the development of the biological weapons. Under military-civil fusion, so many civilian institutes can conduct dual usage research and develop biological weapons. Even just recently, for example, I'll give you one example. There's one researchers in Jilin Agricultural University. His name is Zhao Zhongzhen. He did gain-of-function studies on avian flus. Right? So if you look at it, you just feel it's just a civilian. But if you track him in detail, he's actually receiving merit awards from PLA. So he's a PLA officer. So it's very easy for them to disguise their military purpose. And then also, now we're actually into a new paradigm right now, because the synthetic biology has progressed so fast with the integration of AI technology. Now you can develop engineered microbes so easily, so cheap. It's totally unprecedented risk at this moment. In the past, it may cost a few dollars to manufacture like one nucleotide. Right? Now just a pennies, so cheap and so fast, and they can design dangerous pathogens through AI-assisted program, and they can easily find out which way you can make it more transmissible, which way to make it more pathogenic, and which way it can escape the immune system. Everything can be quickly designed and then manufactured. So which ethnic group they want to target, it's very easily to be manufactured, designed, manufactured, and then produced. Okay? So now we are in a totally different world right now. And another biggest threat, I actually recently mentioned to some of the congressional office here, is called mirror life engineering of microbes. Because molecules, for example, DNA usually is the right-hand chirality, right? So, and then all the protein are L-shaped. This is a natural forms. But if you make a mirror image of these molecules, it will be very hard to recognize by your own immune system. And it can proliferate without control, without checking in the natural world if it's released into the world. So nowadays, United States scientists as well as Chinese scientists are working on mirror life engineering. Okay, so right now they don't have the capability to produce a totally engineered microbe, but it's coming in a few years. Okay, and Chinese scientists in the Westlake University in Hangzhou, they just published recently, they can actually create the mirror image T7 polymerase. So they can, engineer enzyme right now can make mirror like form, reverse mirror image forms of the protein, the enzyme. So they're getting closer to that. And this is actually, the threat is like a nuclear weapon capability in the biotechnology field. So once they have the technology fully established, they can engineer microbes that your body cannot detect it with your own immune system. It can accumulate in your body organs, and it's very hard to degrade. And it can target specific ethnic group as well, okay, with specific receptor as a target. So it's a very dangerous situation, and we see a similar pattern. American scientists helping Chinese scientists developing their technology, just like the gain-of-function study, right? So scientists in the Broad Institute in Harvard University is working with the scientists in the Westlake University, and the scientist in the Westlake University was a postdoc in Harvard before he went back to China. So they developed this technology together, just like the gain-of-function study, just like the story of Shi Zhenli. So now we are in a very, very dangerous situation. If United States did not put a stop, did not ban the whole research, it will create huge disaster. Okay, so actually last year there are about 38 scientists published an article in the Science magazine urge to stop this research globally. Of course, you cannot stop China at this moment, but at least you deliver a clear message to the scientists in the United States. You cannot support this kind of study. And there are scientists in the United States who have selected blindness on the risk of this kind of study. And maybe many of the journalists, many of the scientific journals won't publish this. You know, it's just like, it reminds me when Jordan and I, we talk about this CCP cover-up about the COVID, right? In early 2000, we think no journal will publish our article to argue about the origin of the COVID. It's just a situation that is very difficult. So that's why I actually want to say congratulations for the production team for this movie and the cast for this movie. It's so important. This film is actually in the forefront of this cognition war, you know, against CCP's cognitive warfare. I remember in the early 2000s when you talk about CCP's organ harvesting, people don't believe it. Medical doctors don't believe it. And the general public cannot believe these kind of evil exist. But then in the last 10 years, you see so many films talking about organ harvesting, right? Maybe just gangsters, you know, snatch people, take their organs. So people start to get used to this concept. If you disappear in China, maybe your organ gets stolen, right? So people start to open their mind to this possibility. So your film is very important to educate people about this unrestricted warfare. Then the people can think, oh, this can happen. The CCP's evilness can reach to this level, and we are in this war already, in the unrestricted warfare in the United States. So I actually hope to see more films coming out of your studio, and I think it will help a lot of people waking up. This is very, very important.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, as we can see, it is such a complicated subject. We're just at the tip of the iceberg. And each topic that our panelists have brought up could unpack. It's just so multi-dimensional. And there needs to be more discussion, more movies, hopefully we'll see from Mr. Ma and others. With that said, we do want to open up the audience right now to Q&A. If anybody has a question, please raise your hand. We'll bring a mic over. And in your question, please address the panelists that you would like to respond. Any questions? Sure. Mr. Tozy, right here we have one.
This is a ringer. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to all the panelists and Piero Tozzi from the Congressional Executive Commission on China. I think everything you said here is true and very impactful, and you delivered it very well. The question, though, is how do you get it to a larger audience? So what are the plans for distributing this media? And also, so yes, to the director, please. And also, I think, I mean, one thing as I've observed, too, that over time, in response in part to criticism, for example, on organ harvesting, where there were exaggerations, you've tightened up, I think, Falun Dafa Information Center, been very helpful. We need information, but also accurate information. And what steps have been taken, because I think it is noticeable, because that was one of the past criticisms that people have had to overcome, people that share your overall concern. And I don't know, maybe Jan, perhaps, because we've talked about this in the past, too. So thank you.
So about the distribution of this film, yes, we did a theatrical release in Canada 2 months ago. We faced a lot of interference. That's when, in the beginning, like we had a very great deal with the distributor, and he thought everything would be good. I was kind of expecting some accident will happen, but it's like, so we had a deal for 3 months, and everything was planned. And the day before the ticket selling, the theater actually canceled the event. So we had to suffer a huge loss. including the distributor as well. He's very frustrated, but we fight back very hard, and eventually we get the film in theater on time. But after that, since the distribution circle is a very small circle, so our contact in Hollywood, they just wouldn't dare to do that in US again, because if this happened again, they're gonna lose a lot of money, you know. So what we plan to do instead is just go directly onto the VOD platforms. So that is the most direct way to contact, to build the viewership between filmmakers and the audience. So we are having the film on Ganjin World Plus on the August 8th. We release it on the platform, and then we're gonna move on to Apple TV and Amazon, all the major platforms.
Netflix.
And maybe not Netflix. Yeah. So not Netflix at the moment. Maybe later. Yeah, and also in this way, we release a film on these platforms, and also we hope this film can actually spread, go through the Great Firewall and go inside of China. Because as a Chinese filmmaker, I feel it's important to actually deliver the message to the Chinese people as well, so they will understand what their government's actually doing to them. Because in there, it's only have one voice, and they're deceived, and they may think their enemy is the American people. This is how the CCP hiding behind and manipulate people, right? Turn them on each other. So that's why I think this film, we wanted to, find a way to let the general public in China see it. And yeah, so we'll try our best.
Could I just say, Pirot is one of the great heroes in the United States Congress. He's been doggedly working this particular problem set and so many others for one of the greatest legislators of our time, a man who, despite his record of legislative accomplishment, rarely gets even acknowledged, let alone the credit he's due, and that's Congressman Christopher Smith from New Jersey. And so I would just say back at you, sir, a hearing of your commission that features both this wonderful film, but also the stories that we've just had shared about the difficulties that have had to be overcome. And not least, and I know you're very well aware of this, but the fact that there are so-called Chinese overseas police service centers in Canada and in this country, among others around the world, whose basic mission is to intimidate people like our director by bringing him or her, as the case may be, into this facility, and on the big screen is one of their loved ones in custody, or at least risk of it. And I just can't tell you how much I admire both your courage and obviously that of your family, that they are, persevering in the face of what has to be the most frightening kinds of oppression, because that's what the Chinese Communist Party specializes in.
I just want to build a little bit on what Frank was saying, and Piero, thank you for the question. The real challenge is that, and I think this has come out in this discussion, that we still, like, for example, American police and American even intelligence services have a difficult time figuring out that something happening in Chinatown, for example, is actually a national security priority for the Chinese Communist Party, and an influence operation, not just some Chinese fighting about a disagreement or something of this nature, right? This is actually one of the huge problems, right? This is a regime that has its United Front Work Department, which works on these international influence operations, has what is the latest estimate? A $40 billion budget annually? I don't know what it is, but it's something unbelievable, right? In order to do specifically these kinds of actions to stop films like this from ever being shown, right? So what I would want to encourage, is for the U.S. government to basically, help the people, actively help the people who are being attacked in this way by the Chinese regime. And I mean, again, the CECC and your office and Chris Smith and a few others have actually been kind of at the forefront of trying to help deal with this. But this is the opportunity. I think Casey's point is right, that the time frame, if we don't figure this out quickly, we're good to figure things out quickly, right? But I think we need to figure it out quickly. And when you have so much money and the whole sort of focus of a regime trying to hide all these kinds of realities, so you can kind of keep your bad your bad intentions, this war, going without the American people being aware, it would be great for the U.S. government to step up and say and basically counter that. Offer. I think that would be fantastic. On the yeah. Can you say that into the mic so that our people can hear?
We will be reintroducing the Transnational Repression Policy Act today on the Senate side, tomorrow on the House side. So fantastic.
That's fantastic news. And just on the organ harvesting, so the organ harvesting issue is something I've been covering for almost 20 years now, and it was very difficult at the beginning to even get people to listen, because it's a state-sanctioned murder of prisoners of conscience for their organs at scale as a concept is unimaginable to a whole lot of people. So even at that level, it was very difficult. And then, you also have the Chinese regime feeding bad information, right? And there's people basically frantically trying to expose something, and no one's listening to them. It creates a very difficult situation. I think overall, right, the level of information today, some of the researchers, Matthew Robertson with the VOC represented here comes to mind, doing, incredible work. I think the body of knowledge around the forced organ harvesting with the China Tribunal in 2020, with some of these incredible papers. There's a paper on the American Journal of Transplantation, Execution by Organ Procurement, seminal paper. I encourage you to read that. I feel like the quality of the information we have right now is very high, and that we can really bank on it. And there's, I can't name the number of groups that are working on that right now, but I don't think you have to worry about that aspect as much as maybe in the past, Piero.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's also want to mention this bill is very important. The transnational repression we see enhanced activity of CCP's United Front operation in the United States, targeting again many Falun Gong related groups. The Showing Performing Arts and the Global Service Center in Flushing. Their sites, public sites, has been sabotaged in public. Many other things are happening. But at the same time, I want to highlight that actually, even for the United States national defense strategy, need to be totally reshaped, because it's still. If you look at the last version in 2022, the last version, it still talk about deterrence on the CCP and then treating it as a competitor. But I think right now we need to totally upgrade it to treat CCP as a principal rival, principal adversary of the United States. Yeah.
I mean, I think on that point, we think of it as an economic rival, we think of it as a strategic rival, but really it's a systemic rival.
Yeah.
It wants to overturn the entire rules-based order, and I forget who it was that mentioned the WTO. Was it you, Casey? Yeah. I mean, the case in point. I mean, they take advantage of the rules. Lawfare, they take advantage of our court system, our justice system. But that is what the objective is, to overturn that and replace it with a system of its own devising. And I don't think people are aware in the least.
But Piero, that's putting too gentle a face on it. Just read what the Chinese Communist Party's propaganda outlets put out in English every day. And it's talking about destroying the United States of America, defeating it, replacing it, yes, but getting rid of it.
I kind of wish instead of China Daily, it was the Global Times that was giving free copies, and we actually get it and we use it because that's part of our research, and that's. But if people were to read the Global Times, which is amped up far more, that would open some eyes.
Just to underscore something Piero mentioned, a major part of the Chinese Communist Party's unrestricted war that we didn't really get a chance to delve into today, but it's extremely important, is the lawfare and the use of American courts by foreign citizens. Foreign citizens can actually file lawsuits in our courts against American citizens. And it was heartening to see there was a hearing on just this by a subcommittee of judiciary last week with a main focus on the Chinese Communist Party's usage of United States courts. And it ranges from, IP theft in order to find more, technology through discovery processes, to human rights abuses and attacking groups like the Shenyun Performing Arts, like Falun Gong related entities. And when it comes to the lawfare, they don't so much care about the result of that lawsuit, but enough generated negative press to drag those groups through the mud is just enough.
And to impose costs. You also see the enforcement of judges that are obtained in China. Stanford University case where Mao's secretary had donated his manuscripts to Stanford University. And to Stanford's credit, they are fighting to preserve that. But yeah, that's another case in point. And yeah, you can be bankrupted if you don't have the deep institutional pockets and the will to fight.
Could I mention just one other thing before we have to go?
30 seconds, we have to wrap.
The then defense minister of China back in can't remember the exact date. You probably know, Sean. Xiaoxu claimed that the Chinese Communist Party had given, in the person of Deng Xiaoping, the biological warfare program of China, the mission of depopulating the United States so it could be colonized by China. And this takes us back to what Sean was talking about in terms of the technology. If they can make bugs that kill Americans, they will be well on their way to accomplishing that goal, and they had a dress rehearsal with COVID-19.
Yes, indeed, and we haven't even thought about our water supply and the things that, warfare, we're seeing that right now. Unfortunately, this has been a fantastic panel. I wish there was more time. I do want to thank all of our panelists, as well as director Yan Ma for his excellent film, The Unrestricted War. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve, for hosting the wonderful panel discussion. And so next, we will have the opportunity to enjoy these thought-provoking film, The Unrestricted War. Okay,